right, we're here with Ricardo Torres, the CEO of Permanent Solutions Labor Consultants. Rick, how you doing today?
Good.
Great. And we're also here with Cliff Hammond, an attorney lawyer who specializes in labor relations at Nemeth Burwell, the Detroit-based law firm. How you doing today, Cliff?
Doing great, thanks.
Great. All right, guys. So we're here to talk about, I think, we want to get an idea just for our first-time listeners of what exactly unionization means for a company. And you guys both work in labor law and labor consulting, human resources consulting. Now, what, in your opinion, Cliff, does unionization, in a very basic way, mean for a company? Mean for the employers and for the employees?
Well, it has two different components to it. As a company, it means you have to change the way you do business. It's a takeover, essentially, of the way that you're used to determining what the resources are going to be allocated for the cost and how you're going to do your production of whatever you're going to do. So when you get into a unionized setting, as opposed to a non-unionized setting, you have to be prepared to have to negotiate on not only the wages, not only the compensation and the cost, but what it is that you do. Because when you change your production, when you change to new technology, that may have an effect that you never thought was going to have in a unionized setting. You have to negotiate over those things. So when you get into negotiations and you have grievances and you have problems, you don't get to make executive decisions anymore. You don't need to be a businessman to understand that when you have to slow down, you fall behind. That's what it means to be in a unionized setting. You have to adapt your culture. You have to adapt what you do, and sometimes you get left behind.
Yeah, you have to adapt it on a very basic level also. And as you stated, Cliff, it's when the economics change or when your company changes or advances with technology, you have to sit down and renegotiate everything because everything's up in the air. But the basic communication that you have with your employees is changed. I mean, it's like being in a marriage. And every time you want to talk to your wife or to your husband, you have to have someone in the middle giving those responses. Okay, tell my wife this or tell my husband that. You know, you're always going to have somebody there as a referee. You can't talk to them directly when important issues come up that concern the wages or the working conditions.
One of the things that you see is that companies hire the best and the brightest they can find to solve problems. They're highly skilled, highly experienced, highly trained, highly educated. They come to a point where they have a plan that they put in place will really save the company, and then you have to go talk to the union who says, what's this you're going to do? I don't know if I like that. And they may have no experience, no knowledge, no training, just don't like what it is and want to ask a bunch of questions. The time, the resources, and the energy slow you down, and it's a change. You want to put a video camera in because you think there may be people doing drugs, which is unsafe. Everybody knows that on your premises. You got to negotiate that. You want to do something as simple as a uniform change. Well, you can't do that without talking to them or negotiating a particular provision. You want to discipline somebody who clearly was outside the lines. Well, I don't know about that. Why don't you give them another break? And the person asking you to give another break, maybe a person who did the same thing before doesn't think it's right. So it really is a difference. It's a different way of thinking than what the business climate and small business and large businesses are used to.
And it is very expensive. When you have to slow down your business, when you have to talk to people that are not educated in exactly what you do in your business. When you talk, when you have to slow down, it costs you money. When you have to change the way you do business, it costs you money, a lot of money. You have unions that always like to say, and this is one of the organized employers, we want a partnership up with your company. Well, guess what? The company does not want a partnership up with some union guy who has no experience. Doesn't want a partnership up with the union. That's what the union's not there for that, to partner up or to give advice on how a company runs their business. Union is there to try to represent its workers, and as Cliff stated, it slows everything down. You can communicate with your own workers. You don't need a third party in there.
Rick, I'm glad that you brought up the employees part of this. Well, let's talk about some implications that these might have for employees as a whole as well with this unionization process on the employee and the employer side.
One of the biggest organizing ploys that unions tell the employees, the workers who they're trying to get to vote for the union, is that the rules and regulations are unfair. Companies' rules and regulations are unfair. They're too restrictive. You don't have enough freedom. You don't have voice. Once we get in and we start educating the workers on exactly what being a union member means and how complex it is and how many hundreds of pages of rules and regulations that the unions bring to the table and how restrictive it is 100 times more restrictive than any set of management rules and regulations I've ever seen.
One of the things, and you can go to the broad, which is just what Rick was going to, but I'll give you an example. You have an individual employee. They have insurance through their spouse. They're set pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. They're working. They would like to have a wage increase because they want to take that money home, put it in their pocket, invest it, spend it, go on vacation, whatever they want to do. But the majority of the employees that work there say, actually, we don't have insurance. We want that money put into our insurance. The problem with the union program is it's the will of the people that are speaking, not you, the individual. It takes the ability of the employer to work on a one-on-one basis and say, I'm sorry, I'd love to work with you with what your needs are, but I can't because the law says you can't do it. So that person then gets insurance they don't need and doesn't get the money that they do need. And it's the same way the opposite. There are a lot of people who might say, I want insurance. And the union says, look, I can't help you because the majority of the people that are going to vote for this agreement, they don't want that. So what's lost in the organizing campaign is the fact that you as an individual are lost. It's the good of the whole, but the good of the whole doesn't always meet your individual needs. And the employer cannot by law go down and ask you, what do you want? What do you need?